Why do you care about Gene Simmons? I love Gene Simmons. He's the granddaddy of. He's one of the granddaddies of rock and roll. Without Gene Simmons, you might not have had, dare I say, I don't want to say it, but bands like War maybe, or bands that wore makeup, you might not have that. Gene Simmons said that Public Enemy should not be. What was it? The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame sucks dick for rock and rollers anyway. To be honest with you, it's. But if they're gonna do that, you might as well bring more people to the table. I mean, if it wasn't for Aerosmith and Run DMC with their Runaway Monster Baby union of hip hop and rock and roll, and then Public Enemy's collaboration with Anthrax, Bring the Noise, you wouldn't have things like Rage Against the Machine, which Run DMC and Aerosmith and Anthrax and Public Enemy gave rise to. Remember, like 411? I mean, you can go on and on about all that shit. Gene's an old timer, and he probably covets that rock and roll shit deeply, and he probably takes it real fucking seriously. But don't forget, Kiss was guilty of having, at one point, didn't they do a bunch of disco songs or like dabble or like connotate towards all I want to do is fuck Francis. That's all I give a fuck about. But didn't they they did, why does it matter what Gene Simmons thinks in the first place? You know, uh Dimebag Darrell was buried in one of Gene Simmons' Kiss caskets. Those shits are real. People actually buy those and bury themselves in it. If there was a Misfits coffin, I would definitely fuck. You know what I'm saying? I'd be one. I'd be like, yeah, bury me in the fucking Misfits casket. Oh, hell, put a Crimson Ghost mask on my head too. Yeah, and bury me with Doyle's Iceman or Bobby Steele's fucking Les Paul if you can get it. Yeah, people take that shit seriously, but hip hop, unfortunately, that's all over too. It's only 50, 55, around 50 some years old, and it's already over with. It's the last bastion of rock and roll. Especially Public Enemy deserves their place in any type of in American folk music. They deserve their place. You know. Um, Yeah, I think Rick Rubin. The early days of Rick Rubin was always constantly trying to bring together and he did it well. Bring together hip hop with. Does anybody remember that? You had things like the Beastie Boys. You had things like Slayer. You had things like Public Enemy, LL Cool J, all being produced by Rick Rubin, and that was pretty much the hat he donned. I miss those days, and I think that most metal people enjoyed hip hop music. I did. I enjoyed it immensely. I didn't give a fuck about the radio shit. You couldn't hear Public Enemy on the radio. You couldn't. If you did, it was highly censored and it was late at night on college radio. I still listen to my Public Enemy records. It's still relevant to me. Like I said, the first time I ever heard punk rock in 1987 was back to back with Chuck D's group, and it left a permanent stain on my soul. And that was the music of rebellion. It wasn't so much metal. It was like, we're thrashers, we're skateboarders, and this is our music. We listen to Public Enemy, we listen to the Dead Kennedys, we listen to anything that smacks of rebellion, has a groove and sounds really good. I'll never forget the first time I heard Chuck D's voice. I was terrified and I was fascinated at the same time. Same thing with Jello Biafra's band, but I'll never forget hearing Chuck D ever, as long as I live. And I did an episode years ago about what it was like to go to a Public Enemy concert. It was, they would lock the doors, turn on the strobe lights and sirens, and the security of the first world would come out with submachine guns and take the stage. And that's very much like similar to a Slayer show or something. That terror, that panic, that urgency. it's closely related to rock and roll. Public Enemy was, and how they took their own culture, Coltrane, Ornette Coleman samples, and chopped them up and put them through a sampler with records, and it just created this beautiful fucking noise. But it doesn't seem right that public. I don't know if it should be rock and roll, but there should be by now a hip hop Hall of Fame, and they have their work cut out for them. But if I was to think about, does anybody, just if you're old enough, does anybody remember the first time you heard Anthrax and Public Enemy doing "Bring the Noise"? It almost sparked a whole revolution and shit. It was very important because, like in New York City, you would have. Where was Anthrax from? New York City. Yeah. So in New York City, you would, you'd be in SOD, MOD, you'd be in Anthrax, and that would be also some of the sounds you would hear on a daily basis going into the city. You couldn't avoid it. Hip hop. That's back in the day, but rock and roll is dead, and so is hip hop. Nobody's got the balls to do what Chuck D did anymore. Nobody. NWA was sort of the world's most dangerous band, but they were too California, too laid back, too non-political. If you ask me who the world's most dangerous band would be, that would probably be Public Enemy. You got Flavor Flav dancing on stage. Remember that when he dropped crack rocks out of his pocket? Chuck D bends down and picks them up. Oh, we're going to jail today. Yeah, man, that's their gimmick. That was their was Flavor Flav. Um, Professor Griff, with his knowledge, his history of African American persecution, that shit was, nobody would want to fuck with that on a college level. They had that righteous fucking anger. It wasn't as nice as Run DMC and Aerosmith, but it also, like I said, it also gave rise to bands like that because hip hop is in the rock and roll family tree. It's off to the side with other things. It's in there. It's in there somewhere. But hip hop died because they did the same thing they did to rock and roll. They tried to water it down, make it available to everybody, and it shouldn't be. It should be rebellious, angry music. I don't really think. I don't think the modern black man has that kind of rage that Chuck did. He said it himself. I grew up in the '60s, and yeah, you know, he remembers what that shit was like. Nowadays, to be black is almost. It's a different experience than if you grew up in the 50s or 60s or even the 70s. I miss that. I miss that angry black, you know, fear of a black planet, fucking, you know, shit. But anybody should be. But I love fucking Gene Simmons though too. It's just it's just the way he is, you know. A lot of people covet their shit strongly, and he does too. You know, they got a long way to go though. There needs to be a lot more. There's a lot of rock and roll bands that have been left out of the fucking Hall of Fame. They got to get. Maybe that's what Gene was trying to say. I don't know. But they gotta go back and scoop up a whole bunch of bands that they fucking forgot. Let's put Cobain in there. He's probably in there already, isn't he? Yeah, I think he is. I think they put him in, but it took a while. It took too long. Yeah, that Cobain in there. I'll put Cobain on my bed. That's what I'm trying to do these days. That rock and roll animal's dead. Had a heart attack on the track. That lame rock and roll mule refuses to run anymore. Same thing with hip hop, man. It's all robots now. It's AI hop. It's vocode hop. Nobody has nothing to say. Let's wrap this the fuck up, though. Yeah, they. Maybe Gene's got it. Maybe Gene is trying to copyright the name rock and roll. I think somebody already did that though. Who knows what he's trying to do? Well, what's wrong with Gene? All these rock and rollers with their gorgeous daughters. He's got another one too. That little bitch. Jesus Christ. Remember that show? Holy shit. Is that your daughter, Gene? Jesus Christ, all fucking mighty. God damn. I wonder if she's got that big. I never thought about it. I wonder if she's got that big demon tongue too. Nice, long, fat, wide one. That'd be great. Holy shit. Yeah, but you know, can you blame Gene? That's all he knows is that rock and roll arena horse. You know, that's all he knows. He's probably protecting it like his. You know,